I hope you enjoyed part one of our conversation with New York Giants legendary quarterback Phil Simms and broadcaster extraordinaire. 2 careers for Phil Simms. He's great. There's no question about it. He had a lot to say in part one, and he has more to say about the National Football League, the level of play at the quarterback position in the National Football League, what the Cincinnati Bengals are about in his eyes. He's got a whole lot of topics that he hits here in part two. I think you're going to like it as much, maybe even more than part one. Our 1 million YouTube view giveaways contest, courtesy First Star Logistics, continues with a special contest that runs until August 7th, 9 o'clock. So you have plenty of time, but don't procrastinate. Don't wait, because prizes include 2 tickets to a Cincinnati Reds game in the Boone County Bourbon Room with Dave Lapham. That would be me. 2 tickets to Cincinnati Reds game in the Boone County Bourbon Club with a celebrity to be determined later. And I know you're going to like that. It's big time. A signed Dave Lapham jersey, First Star Logistics custom backpack filled with apparel and gear, a $300 value, very nice prize, 2 $50 gas cards with the price of gas today. Nice. To enter, just go to the link and description below or scan the QR code. Of all the attributes that we talked about that Joe Burrow possesses, if you had to pick one, what do you think is his strongest?
Oh, well, it's hard to pick one, but I'll get to it.
Yeah.
One, he's built to be a quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
The height, the body, long arms, all that, the temperament, the leadership quality, which I think is one of the most underrated things that we have going in with quarterbacks now. We want to do all the things right, but do you have the ability to galvanize players and bring them with you? And there's no doubt he has that ability.
Yeah.
And I kind of got off track there earlier. I meant to say it. They changed the roster a little bit last year, and all of a sudden you look at the football team and Joe Burrow's the man.
Yeah.
I mean, there's nobody there to counter him or nothing. It's a younger team and everybody. And, he became, I would just think, the driving force mentally or whatever for the football team. So what was your question? I've already forgot that too, because I was
just his biggest attribute, his strongest attribute, if you had to pick one.
Oh, man, it's just his great athletic feel.
Uh-huh.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
The movement, the feel, just how to play the game naturally and like at a slow pace, probably for him mentally. He's not a frantic guy ever. Everything looks graceful when he does it.
Yeah.
And he smirked once when somebody said, I saw it. He was doing a press. Phil Simms said you're Joe Montana, and he goes, and to his credit, he just goes, "Oh, let's don't get carried away there." But I was wrong. He's really, without question, physically, he's a better player than Joe Montana is. Now, will he have the same overall success? Well, that's going to be tough. But physically, he's the modern day Joe Montana. There's no other way to explain it. Moves in the pocket, great feet. Beautiful throwing motion, but with more power. He's bigger, stronger, and faster than Joe Montana too.
And I agree with you. And he is a football savant mentally. I mean, this guy knows his X's and O's now. Yeah. It's unbelievable. If you had to say he may need to work on this, what might that be? Not necessarily, oh man, this is a glaring weakness, but every quarterback wants to be as consistent as he possibly can, snap after snap after snap. Is there anything that he needs to do a little bit more consistently, in your opinion?
If I said anything to be somewhat negative, I think there are times when he tries to be truly Houdini and maybe get out of trouble but that's the hard thing too, Dave. He gets out of trouble so much. Where do you draw the line? And I mean, he would get out of things this past year. I go, wow, that was really phenomenal.
Yeah.
And of course, a lot of those times that leads to sacks. So, you don't want to try to corral that because that takes away a lot of creativity from him. So I honestly, I can't think of anything that he really could get better at as far as that. I mean, I don't think he's going to be able to throw it much harder than he throws it now, which is big time, top 10 NFL stuff. His touch and his field to play the game, to throw the football, that's all top notch. And which we've already talked about, his leadership skills they're natural. It comes easy to him. And I would think he loves being the man.
Yeah. It was very interesting to watch, Chris and Joe interact. And Chris, when you said, this guy's a big dude, that was Chris's is like standing, Joe, you're a big guy. And Joe's like, yeah, I'm 6'4". I'm a solid 6'4". It's like, man, you're a big dude.
I know. I love that when I tell people like things. I say, when you get up next to Patrick Mahomes, he's a big dude.
Yeah.
I mean, man, you got to really look at him. His legs and everything. I mean, Boomer loves to talk about, well, you got to have that big muscle behind you to help you. Trying to be nice. And, we always say, yeah, you don't see the skinny, whatever certain people. That's what he loves to talk. Him and Frank Reich have some sayings I can't even repeat. They're pretty funny, though. Frank Reich would always tell me, Boomer, I'm not like you and Phil. I'm like skinny in my legs. And so I couldn't stand there, whatever. So it's funny having those talks. But, it's with Christopher, my son, and Joe Burrow staying. Yeah. I think Christopher was caught up. Well, he saw him at the Super Bowl.
Right.
But when he got really up close, I talked to him after he got back and had the trip. He was so impressed. And of course, in many ways, with the person who he is, and of course, the physical skills are outstanding.
And your son, Chris Sims is he's great, man. I mean, he does as good a job as can be done. I'm a big fan, a huge fan. I became a fan of his when he was playing at the University of Texas for Mac Brown. And you
did some games.
Oh yeah, did some games, quite a few of his games. And I'm telling you, at production meetings, he was, top notch. Coaches talked about him in such, effusive praise and well-deserved. You talk about physically and mentally tough guy as well. I love your son as a football player and now as an analyst. And it's interesting. Let's talk from the collegiate standpoint about a little scenario here. Chris went to Texas.
Right.
Arch Manning going to Texas. Cooper's son, Archie's grandson, Peyton and Eli's nephew. So, the legacy of, Chris Sims, Phil Sims royalty, the legacy of Arch Manning, with the Manning family legacy. What kind of compare and contrast do you see there of different times, your son going to Texas and Arch Manning going to Texas? That's a coincidence, but just carrying on that royalty name.
Well, royalty, I don't know about the Mannings, of course. They've corralled that forever. And, I tell people this, and, especially since we throw with so many quarterbacks and kids are in college, and, Jack Cohn from Notre Dame was one of I've taught him for the last, don't get him as much as I want. I'm going to say 5 or 6 years. I got him in high school but the whole thing about my son, Chris, and I tell fathers this, you got to be involved. If your son's a quarterback in this day and age, in this world, you got to be right on top of him. And I was the father that stayed away. I didn't want to get involved. I didn't even really teach my son Christopher much about throwing and all that stuff. Do it as much as but I regret it because I should have been all over it. And I should have decided where they're going to college. Mm-hmm. You're 18, you know nothing. So I'll make the decision and live with it. So I worked with my son, Matt, a lot in high school.
Right.
And so he came out, he's a really polished thrower, can drive it through a brick wall and all that stuff, but it didn't work out for him. And, I think about it all the time. I regret the way I handled them both. And and I don't know what you think, Dave, but in this world now, you got to be a little more hands-on. And, my dad didn't really get too involved with my athletic. He wouldn't come to all my baseball games because he wanted me to have space and grow a little bit by myself. But also at the same time, I'd come home, man, he had some stern lectures. Oh my gosh. Not only about sport and life and all that stuff. And so once again, I kind of get off track, but Arch Manning, I'll tell you this, of course, they're all over him, the Manning family.
Yeah.
I watched his highlight film after he signed, and I'm going to tell you, he does a lot of things really, really well. And he is polished. And I heard somebody, maybe on Twitter, I read it, I can't remember the paper. Well, look who he's playing against some of these games. I don't care. I'm just judging him. I'm not judging the team and who they're playing. I couldn't when I study quarterbacks in the offseason coming to the draft, Dave, I don't even know what their record is as a football team because it means nothing to me. I don't care. I don't even know their numbers. I never even looked their numbers up. I'm just going to judge the guy and see what they're. And so I did that. I'm doing that with Arch Manning too, and his techniques and all that. What I see, his body. He's a big dude for a damn going into his high school senior year.
Yeah.
And I think his upside is honestly, boy. I already thought about this. I think his upside's more than Peyton's and Eli's physically.
Wow.
Yeah, it's saying a lot, but I feel pretty secure saying it though.
Yeah. Well, that's, it's very interesting. I wouldn't beat yourself up, Phil, about the way you handled your sons, because both of them are great kids, great people, very successful. You certainly did a hell of a job helping raise your sons. And it's funny, like my dad, my dad was an artist and a technical illustrator by trade. He couldn't tell you if a ball was stuffed or had air in it. And then he had 3 sons who all had scholarships to college for sports.
Oh, that's great.
It's crazy. It's because it's weird.
What were the other 2? What sports did they play?
My older brother had a football scholarships to Bates, which is a school up in Maine. My younger brother had a basketball scholarship to University of Maine, and then ended up, when he finished that scholarship, he came back, and Jack Bicknell was coaching at Maine at the time, and he talked him into playing tight end, and he had a bunch of catches, bunch of touchdowns. The Buffalo Bills drafted him in the 7th round after that. So he played, both basketball and football, and got drafted in the NFL, and he got drafted in the NBA by the Milwaukee Bucks as well. And then, I had my scholarship to Syracuse, and then played in the NFL. So it's crazy. My dad was like, he'd sit around and shake his head, and all his friends are like, how the hell do you have these 3 behemoths that are all playing college sports? Because my dad, maybe 6 feet tall, maybe 190 pounds, here's
the thing.
And an artist, it's like.
What was your mother? How tall was she?
Yeah, now there you go. Yeah, she was like close to 6 feet in the 6th grade. She.
Oh my gosh! So there you go.
Her dad was a big man in his day. Like 6'4" in his day was really big.
Oh sure.
And she had. That's where you're exactly right. That's where the size came from. That side of the family. Yeah.
Well, Christopher was on his show one morning, and they were making fun of me. Dad thinks he's still going to play. He works out. He does this. He thinks Bill Parcells is going to call him any day, whatever. And so they're making fun of me like I'm a meathead or whatever. And they were talking about genetics and a little bit. So my Christopher goes, and of course my brothers and sister watch his show in the morning. They said, "Well, if you ever met Phil's mom, she had hands that were unbelievable, and she could have been middle linebacker for the Chicago Bears." Of course, my brothers and sisters fell out laughing. Thank God my mom was not allowed to hear that. So, but when he said it, it's I have some brothers that are big dudes, and some of them are not. But
it is.
Look at the mom a lot of times; she'll tell you a lot. So that's for sure.
True, a gene pool is a big thing, and really, I remember. These recruiters, would when they came into my house, they'd look at my mom and say, "Okay," and shake their head. You're right. They'd look for kids that had the big mothers, from the gene pool.
I had a high school coach. I said, "How do you decide which kids?" What he goes, "Hey, I look for the mother."
Because the genetics, I guess, cross over. I guess a high percentage of the time or whatever.
Yeah,
but,
they do. They definitely do.
They look for the big athletic moms. There's no doubt about it.
Awesome.
And my mom would have been a pretty good athlete. I think they didn't really have sports back in her day.
There was no sports,
She was coordinated though, and all that good stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, let me ask you your opinion on an NFL quarterback. What do you make of what's going on in Cleveland with Baker Mayfield and Deshaun Watson? I mean, how do you put some kind of a sense to that thing?
Well, the Deshaun Watson story, I don't know what to say about it. It's sad, disturbing, whatever. We'll see what comes about it. I don't like to really reach out there and talk too much about it. What I would like, let's just say this. I'll do a scenario.
Okay.
If Deshaun Watson gets suspended for a whole year, if Baker Mayfield even has an inkling, they would take him back, then go. Because your best chance for that next 100 million or whatever you think it's going to be is going to come with the Cleveland Browns. And
Mm-hmm.
you go in there and you give yourself back to the team. Some teammates had said some, I think, rough things about him, all
Yep.
that.
Yep.
Who cares? They'll forgive right away. Go out there and do your job and win. That's the players will love you. As Bill Parcells told me all the time, hey, Sims, no matter what you do, there's going to be guys in this team that don't like you.
Mm-hmm.
So your best thing is go win some damn games, and they'll like you then, as long as you're winning games for them. And it's kind of the same with Baker. If he is suspended, I would love to see him go back there and hear that story all year. He can play the chip on the shoulder as well as anybody. And I will say this: I thought he played he wasn't what injured. He was how do you say it? He was hurt.
Yes.
He was injured. He wasn't beat up. And it kind of tells you there's a line, and sometimes you got to pull yourself out.
Yeah.
And all he did was, oh, he's tough and he hangs in there, but it kind of derailed his career. There's no doubt. But he can rectify that. And I keep waiting to see if the Carolina Panthers, I keep waiting for that move. Somebody actually told me last night it was going to happen last night, but it didn't. I haven't looked at my computer yet today, but I don't think anything's happened with Baker Mayfield. But the year before last year, I interviewed him late in the year. I can remember like it's yesterday, the Zoom call or whatever. And if my first question is, Baker, I want you to be honest. Of course, I don't want you to lie to me. I just said, are you throwing the ball better now than you ever have in your life? And he goes, absolutely. I mean, he didn't even hesitate.
Yeah.
He was on fire the year they went to the playoffs. He was throwing the ball great.
Yep.
And, we never got to see that last year because he got nicked up early. And, when you're playing like that, Dave, I did it. And it changes your decision making. It changes your ability. And it's really tough to overcome. And it's hard to pull back a lot or some and play a different way because you want to be the guy who's healthy.
Yeah.
And, he overthrew passes and missed throws last year that no quarterback in the NFL would miss, but he missed them really because of those injuries he had.
Yeah. I mean, when you're getting to the should I or shouldn't I aspect of things, when you're playing at that level, man, that's brutal. You're questioning, second guessing yourself. That's got to be.
Oh, it's brutal. Come on, you know that. You did it, and it's the worst.
Yeah.
It's the worst to have self-doubt,
Yeah.
not trust yourself, and not really know for him, exactly where the ball is going to go. And that's the worst feeling you could ever have as a quarterback.
Boy, as far as the Deshaun Watson contract, $230 million, Phil, guaranteed. I mean, looks like you still could play. I'd give it a shot. I mean, you got Lamar Jackson's just sitting there, on his own. Okay, my value is going up and up. I'm not in a rush for anything. And Joe Burrow's thinking cha-ching. I mean,
oh my God, Joe Burrow. What's going to happen if he has a good? Well, this year's over. How much they?
Oh my gosh! They reset the market. Are you kidding me? $230 million guaranteed, every penny. And then the way they structured it, $1 million, in case he did get suspended. So now only $1 million of that 230 gets involved. So that's why the league's saying, in my mind, they're thinking, I want that whole thing and more. And they're thinking maybe 6 to 8. So I don't know. Solomon says somewhere in between. How many games do you think he might get suspended for, if any, Phil?
Well, it wouldn't shock me to see him be suspended for the whole year.
Me neither.
But I guess the Players Association, I don't really, how that goes. There's always a little bargaining there. That'll be interesting to see. But if he's suspended for the whole year, that contract is lengthened another year. So he'll get $1 million the following year. It doesn't void that year.
Okay.
So that's one thing, If he's going to get suspended 14 games, I'm sure the Browns are going, hell, suspend him for the whole season.
Yeah.
Well, that way we don't have to pay him $1 million the following year. So I don't,
Oh boy,
it's a tough situation. It's really hard to talk about because, I think I'm kind of that. I think I'm this way. I feel sorry for a lot of people, but I feel sorry for the women too. I do extremely. It's just, I can't even imagine being in their world and putting themselves out there publicly to be whatever, second guessed, and made fun of and, oh, you're lying and all this stuff. That's really tough to take.
It is. But I'll tell you what's not tough to take. Visiting with Phil Simms and talking football and everything else there is, just talking life in general. Phil, you're just unbelievable in terms of what you've done and meant to the National Football League and still continue to do so. And
Well,
certainly do appreciate you carving time for us. There's no doubt about it, stud.
Dave, I appreciate it. I hope one day to sit here when I'm 80 and I hope I'm still involved. Probably won't happen, but I'll be involved some way because it is my life and it's what I always wanted as a young kid. So I got it. So I sure am not going to complain. And just something for the Bengal fans. Baltimore is going to be better.
Yep.
Cleveland has a chance, whatever. And Pittsburgh, they still got that dang defense.
Yep.
And I think, this will be interesting to see how the quarterback situation works out. But I like what they've done. And Mike Tomlin's going to play a different game now because he's going to have a mobile quarterback back there a little so they can actually reel it in and play tougher football.
Yeah.
Expecting the quarterback to do some things. But my last thing is this. Lamar Jackson, we know about his running. I think he has the potential to have not a good NFL arm. He has a great NFL arm. I love all these people that say things. They go, wait, you see those legs as quick as they move? That arm moves every bit as quicker. And his throwing motion is compact. He can spin it and he can drive it. His only thing is just don't be, what's the word for it? I'm going to be careful here. Don't be so aggressive that it makes, things look to the other way. He's very aggressive playing the position, throwing the ball. And, it's okay sometimes to throw a 5-yarder, but I think his potential to be a good thrower in the NFL is extremely high. And I really kind of expect to see it this year when he plays.
He is something else. And I agree with you, Phil. When you're quick twitch everywhere. You're
That's
not
right.
just quick twitching your feet and legs. Your whole body's quick twitch, man.
That's a great one. That's right. You're not super fast and have a slow arm.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. There's no question. And as far as the AFC is concerned, I can't agree with you more. I mean, quarterbacks, receivers that have come from the NFC to the AFC. Of the 16 AFC teams, I honestly feel like 14 could be playoff candidate. I mean, the Bengals were 6-25-1 over the last 2 seasons and went to the Super Bowl. The only 2 teams, I mean, and I think Jacksonville's better. I think their quarterback's going to play better as he matures. I'd say Houston and Jacksonville, maybe the only 2. I mean, the other 14 teams are like, you know what? Everybody's a playoff possibility, man. It's unbelievable. It's going to be a grind, man.
Oh, it's going to be tough. A winning record has a great chance of getting you in the playoffs this year. Yep. That's for sure. Yep. Hey, just Trevor Lawrence real fast.
Yeah.
He never showed me, but I wasn't quite, I never said, oh my gosh, he's a generational talent. I never did that. Because really, when you judge his talent, is it top 5 talent in the NFL? I don't know. I right now, there's no way. He's not top 10. He's not even close.
Okay.
But it was amazing. The last game of the year against Indianapolis, I saw, there it is. There he is. He he threw the ball really. That was probably the one thing that caught me all year. He just never had those games. I wouldn't look at his stats. Just let it go and make some of these great throws. And I didn't see enough of that when he had time to do it. But that last game and Doug Peterson, it'll be really interesting to see what kind of quarterback. I think he's going to look a lot different, of course, this year than he did last year.
Do you think he was in that zone of should I or shouldn't I? Was he doubting himself? Do you think he had a little of that going on, Phil, or what do you take there?
Oh, I think there's a little bit of everything. I think all quarterbacks have to realize that you're throwing into different looks and it's tighter and you got to really drive the ball and all those things. And, he really didn't do a lot of that at Clemson. Yeah. Clemson was lob a ball to the fade and a lot of screens and little plays. I mean, that's what they are. Nothing against them. They've had a great, but it's a collegey offense, big time. Right. Where you look at Alabama, Joe Burrow when he was at LSU. There's many teams out there running, I think, really sophisticated passing games that really light it up, and it teaches you to be a good pro. So he didn't quite have that at Clemson, but he's got it now, and we'll see what he does with it.
Great stuff, as always. The legendary Phil Simms. You're the best, sir.
All right,
Appreciate your
Dave.
time.
Always great to talk to you. Let me tell you something, though. Getting hooked up, I lost 5 pounds of sweat trying to get this thing hooked up today. So we got it done. I'm really glad. It's always a pleasure to talk to you and everything. And I'm really glad. And Boomer, I get on him all the time, that since they were in the dungeon. Okay, when you get in the dungeon, the NFL, you can be there for 15 years.
You can.
Because now you got to get lucky. The quarterback, can we not get hurt? All these things that go on. It's amazing. And it's hard to get out of. And we're living in here in New York. You know, we got 2 teams that just can't get out of it.
Right.
And it's hard to do. So we'll see what happens. But the Bengals did it. They did it.
They got Joe Burrow, and he had the key to unlock the gate at the dungeon, man.
Oh, my gosh. Did he ever? I tell you, it's something. So, but listen, great talking to you and everything always. I look forward to talking to you sometime during the year for sure.
Dave Lapham here, and every day I am grateful for my experience to have played professional football. As a player, I realized self-motivation, leadership, and appreciating your teammates are key. At First Star Logistics, you can use those same attributes to create the life you want for you and your family. Build your future by working hard like I did. You'll see results both on and off the field. Call First Star Logistics today and be part of our winning team.
Opportunity knocking.